I noticed a directory site picked up a call tracking number that I set up for Google My Business profile. Is this something I should be concerned about? I want to make sure I'm tracking correctly and that these other sites only have the main phone number registered with Google Business profiles.
Right.
So explain what you did here. You have two numbers, one for tracking and one for Google My Business.
First of all, I get a little confused with this. I'm just trying to learn it. So
yeah,
and I'm still learning CallRail. I've been using it for years for print call tracking, but as far as integrating it into all aspects of marketing, that's what I'm still learning. So I have a website pool set up with 8 numbers. And then I have one set up for Google My Business directly. Yeah, so that's what I have. And so the directory that I noticed that it flagged a inconsistency in NAP had the phone number from Google Business profile. So it's like they
went in and saw it and then updated their information with what Google had.
Yeah.
Do you have your on your Google Business profile, do you have the secondary number in there as your regular number?
Like the actual real number as a secondary number? Yes. Along with the toll-free number.
Well, so there's a couple questions here. Number one is this a problem? And number two, how do we fix it if it is? So number one, there's the name, address, phone number consistency, the NAP consistency, right? That's where Google and other bodies say, hey, we know we've got the right business because the name of the business, the phone number for the business, and the address are all the same. And so it's important for what we call NAP consistency that all those are the same. And so if there are several numbers under listings, then you don't have NAP consistency among your profiles, and then you don't have the credibility from that measurement as a credibility, right? So, and this kind of goes to a complicated topic, which is like NAP consistency isn't the only ranking factor. It's probably one. It might not be as valuable as it once was, but I'd suggest it's worth doing. So I'd say we probably want to fix this. Now, this is what I do. Although I use CallRail for phone call tracking systems, and I recommend it. I think it's easy and powerful and integrates well with Google Analytics and all kinds of advantages for it. Not even that expensive for phone call tracking. But what I do is I set up a static number. And I call that static number all local. And I set it up as it's a print number, just a static number, not dynamically substituted. And I use that number across all profiles, local profiles.
Okay.
That is to ensure, number one, name, address, phone number is consistent. Two, if I get a phone call from one of those listings, I get to call it a lead because I can attribute it to the source. I can even, under the businesses that will allow it, record the phone calls. If a client leaves me and decides to go, because of the way CallRail works, they can keep that number. They just got to start paying for it. So I feel good knowing that client can keep that number and then doesn't have to change everything because they moved away from my services.
Okay.
So ethically, that feels good and responsible.
Yeah.
I might be a little bit of work to do that, but it is a good idea. And that allows for the tracking number. Now, that allows tracking number, phone number consistency against profiles. Problem is that when someone calls that, I don't know where it came from. I don't know, did it come from Google My Business? Did it come from Yelp? Did it come from Apple? Did it come from something like that? In fact, I will go so far as to hard code that number onto my website and then let that be the number CallRail dynamically substitutes when someone visits. So if CallRail fails, I still get tracking on all phone numbers from the website. I just can't distinguish how they found us. Here's an example. I made a mistake with CallRail, and I asked CallRail to substitute a number that didn't exist on the site, but the number was hard coded on the site. So guess what? I still got all those leads. I just didn't know where they were coming from. So it kind of saved my bacon in the sense that, hey, client, I know we don't know which leads came from this source, but we know we got this many phone calls this month because it's all a hard-coded phone number. So that's my way around it. And around it meaning making sure I can have name, address, phone consistency. Also that the name, address, phone number matches my website. Right? I don't know how big of a ranking factor that is for Google in as far as Google My Business, but I suggest it's a factor of verification. If you have a different phone number on your website than your Google My Business, but go on, Tricia.
So I do know a lot of people that use this, and basically the way what Google is saying is that you can have your CallRail number, your main number, and if you add your main number from your website as your secondary number, then that keeps your NAP consistency. So that primary number does not need to match as long as you have that secondary number in that does. And because a lot of people are using CallRail and other tracking numbers, and so Google adjusted for that.
So you're suggesting if under Tim's scenario, it doesn't matter that another listing picked up the wrong number.
Well, so I think the issue is that, so this other number picked up his Google tracking number. So if somebody calls from that citation, he thinks it's coming from Google when it's coming from that citation.
Right.
That's the biggest issue that I see with it. As far as the way he's got it set up, I think that is the way it should be done. And I would maybe put a ticket in with CallRail and ask them, have they had that issue, and what have they, what's the best solution? Because is it a citation that you can actively manage, or is it just one of the millions of things out there that just pulled it in?
Yeah, it's some site I've never heard of before. I'm trying to get in. For some reason my password's not working.
Yeah.
So now reset.
Honestly, if it's something like that just pulled it and it has a really low kind of authority website, I would try to fix it. But if it's not one of the big ones that people are going to find, I really wouldn't spend a lot of time on it.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's me.
a good point.
I mean, that's just me again,
Yeah.
You might want to check. I would check with CallRail and ask them if they had this issue. And if so, how did they address, how did they have people address it?
Right. Because I did try to claim the citation, and I'm just not able to get in for some reason. I have to look at my notes, what it was, but I don't know.
Yeah.
About it.
I mean, when it comes to citations and NAP, Google only looks at some profiles, right? It doesn't, all these little random ones that just keep popping up, these little directories that Google kind of doesn't even care about them.
Yeah.
And so as a best practice, I like to keep NAP consistency across them. But like, it probably doesn't matter. And as long as the phone number gets to you, that's probably the only thing that matters. But
And being that it's something you haven't heard of and probably most people haven't, probably won't get any calls, many or if any from it.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, if it's not a place people are looking when they're searching online.
Yeah.
You know, if I were in your position, I would look and attempt to fix it, but then after that, I'd say, oh, well, next. But I would
That's
reach
where I
out to
was at,
CallRail.
like, yeah, that's what I was like, do I just move on from this?
Yeah, reach out to CallRail, see what they say as well, because I feel certain that they've had this come up and would have a good answer for you. So